Okay, I think I can be seen. Can it be heard? I can't see chat. Going really well. Okay. I'm going to go into Inception mode, switch over to my browser. I am live. Okay, cool. Christ almighty, that was a challenge. That was an absolute challenge to get here. And if you are actually even in this, please leave a comment in chat so I know I'm not just talking to myself. Because I think I'm actually going quite mad with what I've got to show tonight. It is going to be quite interesting. Where do I find? Let me just find my chat. Oh, yeah, it was working literally up until 10 minutes before we're due to start. Maybe next week I might actually get this stuff working properly. Scene collection, I have no idea what I'm doing really, to be honest. Not a effing clue. Let's go into YouTube Studio. Come on, in there. All right. I am a little bit gobsmacked, like many of you might be with this case and what we're doing. What has my okay? Ah, fabulous. Hi, Bunny Murphy. 7:42 a.m. in Nashville. Thank you for waking. Don't have a clue either. Thank you for waking up early. Oh my God. Okay, so today I have been going absolutely mad. We've got a few things on the list today. So I'm going to look at what's happened this week in the Idaho 4 case. Now, full disclaimer, this is a big disclaimer that is purely for entertainment purposes, hypothetical scenarios tying together different documents, different pieces of information to put together a narrative that makes more sense than the narrative that we've been sold. Now, in saying that, I am going to start with some of my docs here. Let me just turn that camera off and that one on. Okay, let me go to this preview and screen. Okay, turn that one off. That's just showing my head. That's no good. Okay, preview will do. I am going to preview some documents here. I'm just going to open my Finder. The first one I'm going to show you is in regard to Skylar Mead. If you don't know who Skylar Mead is, he is one of the Aryan Brotherhood, Aryan Knights, Aryan something. So just 6 days ago, last Thursday, and I'll just double check that this is coming up in feed. Switch it over to actually make sure this does display on the screen. I'm losing my mind. Preview, Finder, window capture. Let's do that. I'm so new to this, so bear with me. I really appreciate it. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Transition. All right. So Skylar Mead pleads guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder following Idaho prison break. This is December 4, 2025. So Thursday last week. Boise, Idaho, Skylar Mead pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder for deaths of James Morney of Julietta and Gerald Henderson of Orofino. As part of the plea agreement, Mead will receive 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Now, I looked at this and I was like, well, that's cool, but I cannot find the court doc. I've gone extensively through search, and no matter which way I filter it, I can't find search. But what I did find, and I will open the next one up. I'm wondering if this is related. So let me see if it's coming through on chat. It is not. Let me switch this over to the next document. I'm going to have to do it from here. Hello to Charm Free and TJ. Welcome back. I'm hoping I do better than last week. Last week was an absolute train wreck, but here we are. We made it online, only just. I'm going to show you a number of documents. Let's just switch over to the next document I've got open, which is this one. So, hey, yay. Oh, where's my document? There it is. Multiple fentanyl overdoses at Kootenai County Jail, December 5th. Does that say December 5th? December 8th. Oh my God, eyesight. So, Monday this week. Yeah, nailed the audio. That's because I didn't try anything fancy. I just went straight to the MacBook. Yes, that is Skylar Charm Free. Interestingly, Skylar Mead was also one of Anne's cases. If you look at some of the court records, Anne was listed as their defense attorney, and there's a plea deal. So it looks like Skylar got a plea deal as well as Brian. Now, this is the Monday, the 8th. We're looking at this article. I cannot find anything around Skylar's actual court records, except for ones from 2004. So I'm going to close those couple of documents down. Let's have a look. Next. So then the big one for me, this was, oh my God. Let's open this one up here. This is when things started clicking for me. If I just get the right document in the viewer, and we're going to go for this. Okay. Former senior DEA official indicted for conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization. Now that's an interesting way of putting it, because all the other DA reports, and this is something I've been monitoring for a while around parallel investigations. As soon as we saw Herwood appear in court, I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And looking at his involvement, he was leading the OCDETF, I can't even remember, Drug Enforcement Task Force, some OC for something I cannot remember for the life of me because my brain has gone to mush. However, what I was doing from there is looking at DEA, FBI, CIA, NSA, Homeland Security, and Department of Justice, all of those filtering into my 2CTS MDR. I have no idea what that means, but cool. Senior DEA official indicted. So Paul Campo and friend Robert Sensei agreed to launder approximately $12 million. $12 million and participate in narcotics trafficking for Jalisco New Generation Cartel, aka Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación. I hope I pronounced that right, or CJNG. Now, this does say New York, but this is a transnational, multi-jurisdictional what was it called? Operation something. Okay, so United States and Mexico. Hundreds of thousands of dollars they believe to be CJ. So this talks about a prior senior official at DEA, the Department of oh God, I'm not even I'm an Aussie. I have no idea what it means. I can't remember. Again, mash. But Hall worked for the DA for approximately 25 years, first as special agent in New York, eventually rising to become a high-level DEA official, specifically Deputy Chief of Office of Financial Operations, retired about January 2016. You're like, yes, Joff, but we're 9 years down the track. Anyway, late 2024, Robert Sensei began meeting with a confidential source working at the direction of law enforcement. So, confidential informant posing as a member of CJNG. Sensei told CSI that CS1 that he had a friend who used to be in charge of DEA's financial operations who could assist by laundering narcotics proceeds and providing the informant with sensitive DEA information. So they talked about laundering money, converting cash into cryptocurrency, high charisma craft. Um, yeah, see, Charm Free, I'm going to get to a few things. I don't think he's a problem. I think that there, thank you, Bunny Murphy, Drug Enforcement Agency. Um, I actually thought he was a problem until today. And I'm going to show you why. It's blown my mind. Okay, so talking about payment of approximately 220 kilograms. Okay. Campo and Sensor agreed to launder approximately $12 million in narcotics proceeds, launder approximately 750,000, converting cash into crypto, and providing a payment for approximately 220 kilograms of cocaine. That's a lot. On the understanding that the payment would trigger the distribution and sale of the narcotics with approximately $5 million, for which Campo and Senso would receive directly a portion of the proceeds as profit and receive a further commission upon the laundering of the balance. And you might say, hey, Joff, what the F does this have to do with the Idaho 4? And it's a bloody good question. I've realized, actually, am I even showing you this screen? Did I show you that screen? I hope I was. Oh my God. I'm going to just go through one of these documents at a time. So then I'm not sure if everyone has read the latest update that was released on the 5th of December from ISP. Let's see if this would just load the document immediately. I hope you follow me. I don't follow me, so somebody's got to. Here we go. This is hopefully appearing on the screen. So this is what was released on the 5th of December. So 5 days ago, being what, Friday last week? Yes, Friday last week. And it says, clarifying, this statement is to clarify page 28 of the 2,356 pages of records released on the 31st of October on the ISP website. Goes on to explain, thank you, Bunny, goes on to explain that the system, man, how many systems have gone wrong in this particular case? The system is programmed to normally print a PDF to the database on the case file information available when the evidence is received in the lab. That PDF is stored in the database, and the stored PDF is reprinted anytime it's called for, again, such as a discovery request or a public records request. Unfortunately, that print to PDF storage in the database did not happen on this specific submission. Our lab information management team has confirmed via the database date and timestamp that the name Brian Koberger was added to this request on January the 5th, 2023. Blah, 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 excuses, excuses, excuses. Let's backpedal as to why we actually already had his name. Because they did. They abso-effing-lutely did. So then that is interesting. We're going to open that document and look at page 28 if my computer doesn't crash. Please don't crash. Yeah, early 2025. Now, Bunny, I'm going to show exactly what dates. Now it's interesting, the date that he came into the case and the date that he left his role with the OCDETF, working as the head of that task force. So I'm just going to zoom this one in and then I'm going to bring it on the screen. Pop, 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 pop. Okay, switch this over. Switch to the next one, which is our forensics report here. So this is the case jacket that was downloaded with the files on the 31st of October 2025, and it's the overall case jacket for everything that the Idaho State Police Forensics did. I'm just going to move that so I can see the chat because I always like knowing what people think of these documents. Early 25. He just needed this done, and he did. He absolutely did. Absolutely did. And I've got a theory about that we're going to get to. Yeah, so let's look at this. We're looking at the document that they did a clarification for just recently. And if we go down to page 28, which is going to be this one. Page before. There he is. Okay. So it's interesting that his name is there and there is another suspect ahead. I'm going to do an interesting thing here. Hopefully this is, yep, it is coming through on there. I'm just going to, is this going to allow me to draw the text box that I want to put on there? Oh, if I press that one, there we go. Can move this over here and make it about that big. And I am going to now then get that, go to my text, and I'm going to bring it to the same size. Helps if I can spell. Ryban by Byron. Ryan. Okay, that looks roughly the same size there. Would you agree? Maybe if I make it bold, going to make it slightly bigger and pretty much, that is 5 point. What happens if I make it 6? Way too big. Okay, 5. 5-point text for this. Let me duplicate that. And tell me what your thoughts are. If I went, you're welcome, Sleuth or Dare, and you're not late. It took me a while to get the stream up. I tried about 5 different things. My internet nearly broke, but we're here, and it's fabulous to have you. We're looking at the second of the court docs. I'm going to suggest that those names, that seems to fit pretty well, in my view. But hey, just again, for entertainment purposes, if we scroll down, we're going to see, let's have a look. We've got suspect, suspect. Then we have subject, subject. I could put more names in there. I'm not going to. Lots of subjects. Lots of subjects. Subject, subject. And then victim. So we have a lot of people in the mix. Subject being, we're not listing them as a suspect, but they're a subject. They are subject to further investigation, maybe. Yeah, TJ, I don't know whether I need a therapist or a bodyguard. Seriously, it's got a bit crazy. So below the names here, we've got the submission numbers. Okay, so we have buccal swabs, etc., etc. Then we have evidence submission. So this is one of the documents that was in this pile. I'm going to go from this document down to Okay, the main reason that they provided the clarification 5 days ago on this document, yes, both TJ, but I don't think that Brian's was on there. But or if it was, I do have a theory as to why. Let's just close that document. Let's go to the next thing on the list. Now, I've been down the rabbit hole today, like literally, I was ready to make myself a tinfoil hat. I won't do it while we're on stream. It's just going to be too noisy. But we are going to look at yet another document that I've got here in my bag of tricks. Let's have a look. Okay, so case jacket. So the two documents, and I'll just open the other one as well while we're here. So along with the forensics report that was released on the 31st of October by ISP, there were some other forensic documents. Yes, no one's speaking up because they are all scared. When it's a senior DA official, and they've only just released that presser. What did we look at? 5th? What date was that? I need to go back to that. 5th. So 5 days ago, they released a presser about the senior DA being charged, or the ex senior DA official. And it's going to tie in a bit more as we go along. So I'm just looking at the DNA now, the DNA chain of custody case jacket documents. Let's see if we. Okay, don't crash. Please pray for having this thing stay online. Preview. Where's my document gone? Christ almighty. Okay, here we go. Google Chrome Finder downloads. My document's not appearing. Okie dokie, I found it finally. Yep, I'm hoping I don't crash. I don't even know the timing. Bunny, thank you. Thanks to everyone who's here joining us. And if you do have to go, that's fine because I talk at length. Ruby and I will put together some videos on this afterwards. I literally have only tied these threads together today. I don't think Copacker is in witness protection. I mean, he might be. I've got a bunch of the body cam footage to go through. Charm free, you two have a beautiful day. But TJ, Steve G possibly calling it when he said they were going to put it on the ex-vet. Quite possibly. Quite possibly. So here we have the chain of custody report for the case 22-M09903. That's Moscow's ID for this case, and lab case M20224843. And it starts with the lab staff. So, chain of custody, it goes from Sharon Arredondo to SMA. And I will look down here. Trying to find which. I'd marked everything on the documents before, and I seem to have lost those annotations that I made. I don't know if I didn't save it or what is going on, but let's reopen the case jacket and switch over to that one. So strange. So very, very strange. That is the case jacket. Okay, so that's fine. I can leave. It's now actually switching documents with me. That's great. Finally. Um, so case jacket, here we go. Now I find this interesting. Even from the first page here, things like why on the first page of a document, a case jacket, is this continued? I might be, you know, losing my mind on this, but why is it a continued document from page one? And I also noticed that the text down the bottom of the document with the date here is in a different color to the other footer text, which is unusual in my opinion. You'll notice here on, okay, so this is, we have Koberger again, and I'm going to do what I did with the other document as well. Let's go tickety tick. There we go. Definitely not 5 point anymore. Might make that 10 point. Even with my glasses on, I can't see that. Okay. So then I'm going to type in his name here. Maybe 12 point. Let's have a look. 11. 11 looks good. Could even be 11.5. That's kind of standard for researchers. If you know any researchers, it's always like 11.5 in the most boring font face that you can find. Ruby will attest to that. Yeah, that looks better. 11.5. Now, as I did before, I'll just pop that one down there and just see if this fits. Looks pretty freaking close to me. What about if I go over here? Was Brent driving a white Elantra as well? Or was one of his roommates? Do you know what? I think every suspect in this case, every name we've heard drives a white freaking Elantra. I believe there was one parked at his apartment, whether it was his or a housemate. I cannot remember. Now that doesn't fit, but who knows? They've got everything else out. Anyway, that was just a sort of hypothetical. It's an interesting thing when we've got a few there. So we've got, here's the next thing that I noticed that is unusual. Okay, no, forget that. It's underneath. I was like, why are there only 3 victim names on this document? There is one down on the next page. Thank you, brain. That's where I'm going a bit crazy. What I did find interesting, and this ties into the other documents, is the dates and the names. So Tim Smoldridge and Sharon Arredondo both working for it seems, I don't know what Sharon Arredondo's role is, but there was a report it's in the report around the DNA swabs coming out, getting checked out and back in within 1 minute. Now, the name Arredondo is going to come up a few times here. The name Tim Smoldridge is going to come up here a few times. So we're looking at, it goes from Tarantine, submitted by Tarantine, agency courier. So these particular names, they acted as the courier to transport evidence in this case. What I found really interesting, if we look at this, and I'll hopefully get it all on screen. So it goes Tarantine, I can't remember who that is, but we've got Tim Smoldridge, evidence. Dustin Blaker, I think most of us should know. Tim Smoldridge again. Anthony Dallinger, Tim Smoldridge, Tim Smoldridge, Tim Smoldridge. And Carol McKenna, name I haven't heard before, but if we just, I'm going to try and zoom in over here, see if we can move this onto screen. Carol McKenna, and this is on the 13th of December. Check that that's appearing on screen. I think there's a delay in the recording, but we're in the right spot. So on the 13th of December, Carol McKenna, item 2159 evidence was sealed and did not appear to have been tampered with. However, there were no initials on the seal. I placed a piece of evidence tape perpendicular to the seal, initialed and dated KF. Now it's interesting that KF is there. Uh, this is live with a delay. Yes, correct. I'm live. I would be a lot more coherent if I pre-recorded stuff, and I intended to. But do you know how quickly one Wednesday rolls around to the next, and suddenly I'm like, shit. Especially when you find threads that tie together. Now I'm fully aware that my ADHD combined with autism, known as LDHD, creates some unique things in my brain, and it connects a few dots. Sometimes they meet, sometimes they don't. Today I was a bit overwhelmed by the threads that connected, and especially when we start looking at the DNA and the prosecution screaming blue in the face about how it's valid DNA and twice on Sundays from Hitler. Please get fucked. Oh my god. Okay, so Carol McKenna. Then we have the United Parcel Service on the 23rd, and there's no name. There's no name for who submitted this on the 23rd. We'll look at the records. So it goes Blaker, Smaldridge, Arredondo. Let's just scroll down. We're going to come back to that because we then have the lab item numbers. And you'll see here we've got the case file, which is a file, and then we have the different samples. So I would assume by COUR that we're looking at custody of the Coeur d'Alene Police Department. And then we have item 1.2, which is a DNA extract, which is sent by UPS. And then we have other swabs, samples, reference samples, biological stains. We're going down. We have digital media. So item 221, digital media or digital images or files. Now, ESM. I don't know what ESM. What does ESM mean? And foray. So they just foray around the documents, the digital media to find evidence? Maybe. And either side of that, item 220 and 222, we have DNA extracts. I don't understand why sometimes it's sent by UPS and sometimes an agent takes it there. Is it because of their availability, or is it some other reason? Especially when we have a break in the chain of custody. I mean, this is crazy. We have a couple more DNA samples, item 4, subitem 35 and subitem 36, clothing, swabs, reference samples, comparison items. Another one, 851, we have DNA sample. So why weren't any of these DNA samples tested? We have impressions, latent print processing. Okay. Swabs, more swabs, latent print, latent prints, another DNA extract, item 970. Then we have a few items here which are swabs, but instead of it being UPS or it being an agency representative, it's CIAC. CIAC? I'm not sure if I should be wearing my tinfoil right about it. I'll just hold a bit, just in case. Block all the signals. CIAC, if you know what it means, I'm going to look it up. It's going to be in one of our videos. But there's a few that it goes from there into CIAC, hair samples, bedding samples, goes on and on. We have a bioreference sample of EDM. Now, I don't think that that's electronic dance music, which is what I would know the acronym for. FBI M. So there is a reference sample from the FBI, sample 13, item 13108. And then 13110 is another DNA sample. So we're going to find out from the codes and the references where, to put it bluntly, a shitstorm took place, where they've just covered their butts left, right, and center. What I find interesting on this page at the bottom, when we've got through all of the items, the forensic items, we've got the assignments. So LP standing for latent prints, and forensic sampling, FS. We have the analyst initials, and we have the date assigned. So we have I really do need to go up a prescription. We have what? Sequence. A sequence assigned, 55, da, 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 da. Okay, so we have what I'm not going to go through it now. I'm going to have to look into it further with a number of references, but we're looking at each report that was produced, when it was assigned, who it was assigned to. So I know, for example, when we look at some of the reports that are in the list of documents in that very, very long document, we've got, okay, what's the next one on the list? Well, let's start with 16th of November, 3 days after the homicides. And there's already stuff that's starting to be a bit weird, in my opinion. There's a bunch of initials in here, like I'll have to pair them up with the witness list. That reminds me. This made me, when I looked at the top of this document, and apologies if this goes too fast on the screen, but let's go up the top here. And I think in the first report, well, look, the name is right here. That name right there, 18th of November. Now I'm going to find the witness list. If you have a copy of the documents yourself, feel free to jump ahead. But because I have folders upon folders, okay, you know what? I'm just going to pull back the magic curtain and show you this crazy coding filing system that I've somehow pulled together. So with that one, let's go. Is this going to work? Find a. We need display capture, window capture, finder. Okay, let's put that one on. Madness, sheer freaking madness. Okay, so are we in the right screen? Yes, we are. Okay. So we're going to start with, I'm going to get an inside look at my brain. It's crazy, crazy. Okay, we've looked at this. We've looked at Skylar Mead and his pleading guilty to the murders. The senior DEA investigator retired and getting busted for facilitating multi-million-dollar massive drug and crypto things. I didn't show you the one above here around Interpol and their latest update highlighting the scams using crypto, but that's for another day when I've looked deeper into the crypto stuff, which I've got some documents on. I just haven't had a chance to go through them. We've looked at these briefly. Where the one is that I edited, we're going to look at the next section, which is where it gets a bit crazy. Air America. Um, don't know who that is. Air America. Not an airline, I assume. Don't know. Okay, so let's look at 16th. So here we have the K-bar sheath. We've got latent prints from the K-bar sheath, some DNA swabs, all that kind of stuff. Following 2 days later, we have fingernails and blood matching. Yeah, last week we did, TJ, exactly that. So over, for those that weren't here last week, over in um, Seattle, if we look at the airport or that region, there is a certain company that has a large warehouse there. Company called CMS Starplex. They provide security guards for sporting events and also campus security. One of their clients is the University of Idaho. Some of their employees are Ben Mogan and Corey Hatrock. Whether they still work there or not, I don't know. But at the time, that was happening. Postal Service, TJ, absolutely. We're going to get to that. There's some interesting stuff on the Postal Service. Is that on my screen or is that from your brain? Because I think it's wild. Okay, so let's look into this. We're going to have a look at the evidence, the first evidence logged for the K-bar, which was logged by Sharon Arredondo. Does that come up on here? Or do I need to? I think I need to change that one. Let's go to there. Okay. Brain, exactly. My brain's shot from all of this. I'm quite honestly just, so this is 16th and it was delivered by Tarantine. So I can't remember the name Tarantine, but let's say, okay, so it's come from Tarantine and it's delivered to Sharon Arredondo on the 16th. Tarantine's the courier, but generally that's an agency courier. And this is in regards to murder on the 13th of November 2022. Agency case number is correct. Got the 4 people there. And then we have K-bar sheath with USMC logo, and we actually have the lab item number 1. Lab item number 1. So if we go back to where have I put it? Where have I put it? Oh my goodness. ISP, and we're going to look at the case jacket. Okay. So we've got here lab item number 1. Be nice for them to keep things in order. Yeah, red flag forensics. It was actually just dated and said ISP forensics, but then each bunch of documents on each particular date had a red flag. Just, and so I was like, well, that's where we're going. Okay, so the one we're looking at is item 1. So lab item number 2. So we kind of have a sequence here. So what have we got? Lab item number 1. If I got that the wrong way around, because it's got sub number and then lab item number. Sub 1. So it's 2, 1. UPS DNA. Yeah. So correct. TJ Blaker's email's there. They don't bother redacting that. I guess it is publicly listed. But what I did, and here's where my brain went with using switch to my browser. Switch to my browser. Come on, let's go over here to just going to see if I can get this up now. Safari is still open. We're going to go to window capture and Safari window. Now let's try. Okay, Chat GPT. Let's do this. That's going to load up, and then I'll get this to. Yep. Okay. Boom. So let's go to previous chats, and we're going to look here. Okay, so it's just going to take a minute because my internet's decided to go to rubbish. But once I looked at that DNA, I then grabbed from the isc.isp.idaho.gov, which is the Idaho State Police website. I grabbed these documents: CODIS methods, DNA database, analytical methods, evidence training manual, firearm tool marks, forensic document examination, blood alcohol volatiles, firearms, and forensic documents. Have I repeated myself there? I don't even know. There's differences between them all, and the prompt. Develop a. Oh, I haven't got that on the screen. Hang on, let me move that over. Develop a comprehensive understanding of forensic investigative techniques in accordance with the attachments in order to analyze forensic reports and be questioned on compliance with the training standards. You'll be asked to identify anomalies that deviate from the standards, providing specific detailed references to the location and information that formed the response. Do not hallucinate, which is kind of mandatory when you're looking at it. And it took forever. It took absolutely 10 minutes, 35. Cross-cutting principles, and it's gone through and it's looked at and said, okay, I now understand these documents, and it talked about the key things in each of those training ones and how to look for anomalies and what the sample data would be, standards, procedures, samples. I haven't gone through and actually questioned this information yet in terms of making it make sense to me, to you, to anyone else, because it's detailed. When you train a chatbot with information prior to asking it for the information, it actually knows where to start. So it's told us all about calibration, the DNA database compliance, CODIS methods, implications, discipline-specific techniques for firearms, how to evaluate firearms reports, forensic document examination, handwriting analysis, which if you've seen a mainstream media interviewing a handwriting expert, that's complete BS. I'll just say that right now. Blood alcohol for that, evidence training, templates, and check mandated documentation. So DNA database CODIS, so cards, these are the things to check in those reports. Example anomaly statements. And so then I put in two documents, both which seem to be on the 7th of December, and I think I found some red flags earlier, but this was interesting because it seemed to be two different documents, two different documents for the same work list, 6176, 2 days apart, and the same reviewer. So I'm going to go over to that. Let's see if I switch that in there now and pull up my Finder. My God. Okay, here we go. Let's see if the right one has come up in. Yeah, it has. So you can see this is one of them. And we're looking at a lab report. I can't see chat now with that over the screen there. Yeah, ISO set of standards usually subject to compliance monitoring of some sort. So they do review the documents, but they review them themselves and they sign off on each other. There is a forensic lab manager. I'm still struggling to find out who's actually screwed us here. Hi, Teresa. So we're looking at worklist 6176, and it was reviewed by Tamara Salazar, 11 a.m. December the 7th. And you can see faded over here, Brittany Wiley, December 9. But why is this reviewed over the top of that other review? Because we're looking at multi-drug screening. Multi-drug screening. So it tells us about the methods, and then it's given us the results. Now, I do not profess to know diddly freaking squat about DNA or toxicology reports. But we're looking here at things like, okay, so working solution, negative urine, negative blood, working solution. What I found interesting was I looked at these two. So I went, okay, I don't know what this report's about. Don't know what it's about. I know it's about screening for multiple drugs and it's got a list of drugs there and it's got markers of what to expect. Um, and it's got some results. It's actually got some real freaking results. I assume they're real anyway. And so then there's a second report. If I close that one down and we open up this one, exactly the same details. But if you notice, and I'll just check in, yeah, okay, it is appearing on screen. If you notice that this one's different, it's the same document. It's exactly the same document, or it's meant to be. I'm now seeing that says 6181. Where did I find the other one? Oh my God, I am losing my mind. But essentially, I put them both in and I said, okay, what's the difference? What's the difference in these documents? Because I don't know. But go back here. Hi, Jackie. Okay, so I'm going to go back to chat. So I've put in all the ISP training manuals. They were readily available as PDFs off the Idaho State Police website if you know how to search Google well. And we're looking at two packets. So we have the same person working on a work list 6176, and then the different checklists, the calibration, da 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 da. Now, I'm not saying this is 100% correct. I don't know. I really don't. But when I've trained the robot on consuming all of the training manuals, it knows more than I do. and it's going through and it's looking at all the different things. And so I said, let's look at all the calibration, let's look at the results, let's look at the levels, and it tells us of what's similar. Okay, both packets, toxicology documents 25 and 28, same instrument and blank lots, both list blank blood lot 22B520161 and urine blank lot 7722. So they're coming from the same sample. 25712. So the 9th of December plate map seen in the text extraction similarly includes 25712 among the wells, indicating the same case item was run in both the screening and the quantitative workflows, even though the plate layouts differ. Now, bring Bicaballo in, bring someone in who knows about DNA. I don't. But it started giving me the bit of a concern when we're looking through key differences and discrepancies. Okay, so the 7th of December labeled as multi-drug screen and THC tetrahydrocarbons, which is marijuana generally, in blood and urine. These are screening methods, whereas the 9th of December labeled as multi-drug quantitation, explicitly a quantitative confirmation method with calibration curves across defined range for many analytes to see. Okay, so the first screener came back positive for drugs, I would assume. So this now looks at, let's calibrate that further, and what drugs did it come? This means the later packet is not just a repeat, it's a different analytical method designed to produce actual concentrations. So then we have the columns and the chromatographic conditions. I got that word right, I think. So we have phenylhexyl and 120-ECC18. So the chromatography is intentionally different. Documentation of deviations. So then in the first document, 7th of December, the comments section is blank and all checkboxes, including did all quality controls pass for each analyst, are ticked. The THC related calibration tables show all listed calibrators with a positive status and high correlation with no calibrator dropped or flagged as X. So then the 9th of December, the comment section is extensively populated, detailing multiple analytes where upper range calibrators are dropped because of poor accuracy, analytes where low level calibrators, calibrator 1 and 2, are dropped due to poor response or peak shape, several analytes explicitly labeled as did not evaluate due to quality control problems, rising ratios, out of range control, internal standard peak splitting, and interference in qualifier ions. Despite this, did all quality controls pass for each analyte? Remains ticked. So the contrast is important. The December 7 screening methods show no recorded issues, while the 9th of December quantitation method documents a series of deviations and adjustments. So 7th, if this, like in chat, if I'm just rambling about stuff that doesn't make sense, feel free to let me know. But this is, we'll get into how this ties into everything, the fruit of the poisonous tree that comes off the back of this, the DNA sample. Hi, Jane. The DNA sample is tested extensively in different ways, and yet they're saying tick the box. Yeah, mainstream saying they had no drugs in the system. And I think it was Stacey Chapin who said there was no drugs or love triangle, and yet there were definitely drugs. What drugs were they? That remains to be seen. If she's lied about the drugs and in that same statement lies about a love triangle, we might hypothesize there was a love triangle out of the many weird things that happen in this case. So there's a tick box on the report saying, yeah, everything passed quality checks, except they didn't. So the contrast is important. 7th of December shows no recorded issues. The 9th of December shows a series of deviations and adjustments. So all calibrators use no outliers flagged. Calibration performance appears more problematic on 9th of December, requiring active intervention and curve adjustment. It says reruns. Reruns and column changes, increased injection volume, re-injection of calibrators, quality controls, negatives, positives, and at least one case, C2022664, initially for benzoglucose. I'll give up on trying to pronounce that one. So evaluation of that, benzos. Multi-day process. So then on the following day, the 8th of December, column change and source cleaning, then further injections with only benzos being evaluated from those runs. That's a substantive difference in how straightforward versus problematic the analytical run appears between the two packets. Now, again, full disclaimer, this is purely for entertainment purposes. I am not a DNA expert. I have trained this particular conversation in ChatGPT with the ISP lab manuals for each of the forensic categories. Hi, Jane. Welcome from the UK. A lot of my family is from the UK as well. And I did choose this particular time because it might catch people in the UK, US, and Australia. So, welcome everyone. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with how many people are joining the stream. It's great. We're fairly new to this. We only started a few months ago and we're in the rabbit hole quite deep. Okay, so DNA. Observations directly supported by documents. I am not at this stage judging whether they violate any policy. We will need to see relevant analytical methods, QA standards for that. But these are areas that would typically attract questioning. There's a lot of things in this case that would typically attract questioning. Gooch almost should ask good questions, but then almost set them up like, here, take a slam dunk on your answer. We won't ask anything further off your response. There were so many follow-up questions that were missed. Anyway, that's not the point right now. What we're talking about is DNA. Oh my God, the DNA, what a mess. So, across several analytes in the later sample, 2 days later, 8 calibrators nominally, but 7 levels used. Calibrator 8 flagged with X, accuracy 139.2. And then the amphetamine level. So we've got hydros. Now I think that's an antidepressant. Alpha hydroxyalprazolam. Don't quote me on it, but I believe that's an antidepressant. And TJ is saying some stuff you found on Varied, who had what? Weed, fentanyl, benzos, and amphetamines. Abso-freaking-lutely. There was everything. I mean, it was, you just have to see some of the other early content. WSU Kim, Dave, who is on Lana's Truth and Transparency channel with a voice filter and a bunch of other stuff. And then, oh no, there's no drugs, but yet we find blue powder. What I find interesting, and I'll very quickly cover on that, the blue powder that was found, I haven't gone into it in this particular analysis, but with dexamphetamine or Ritalin or medication for ADHD, yes, there are the D30 pills that are blue in color, but there are a lot of other drugs that are being colored, passed off using fentanyl or carfentanil, which is much, much more lethal than fentanyl, without actually advising anyone that carfentanil is in there. It would, like, if you look at the tip of a pencil, just that couple of dots of carfentanil is deadly. How do you even sell it? It's basically like, oh, let's just go around killing people. It's wild. Anyway, we'll come to that in another live. Yeah, Dylan, 10 to 12 beers still standing, not a wobble or slow. Yeah, right, no drugs. Yeah, so I'm still going to try and map the codes in these forensic reports to the redacted names and then see if we can find out the redacted names. It might be going a little bit overboard, but you'll see when we go further in. Anyway, so I go through this and there's did not evaluate analytes in did all QC pass being ticked. So multi-day reruns, column changes for benzos, sequence reruns, hardware changes, absence versus presence of detailed comments, and then how to frame that in testimony or for review. And then it goes into the relevant standards directly from the ISP reports, including references to the training manuals that I fed it at the start. So I might cover that in a video because talking through it is probably not as easy as putting it together in time and space when my head gets through whatever this is. So let's go back to my crazy red flag forensic finder list like that. Okie doke. So I need to get that up as well on my end, which is there. So we're looking at these two reports. Just then, we were looking at the Salazar reports, which is these two. And those DNA or those tests are off the back of the DNA swabs, buccal swabs, Tim Smoldridge. Now, what I was going to do is find. Where did I find it? Okay, we're going to get to that. So many red flags. So many red flags in the forensic DNA. It's wild. Let me just get down all the way down to. We're going to look at 2025. And we'll look at the case docs in witness lists. I've got them somewhere here. Let's look. Witness lists. My God, that actually worked. I found them. So defendants, witness lists. Let's open this one. Open Sesame. Yes, this is the one we need. Let me just check that's actually appearing. No, it's not. We'll go with. Okay, so here is the defense witness list. Second amended phase 2 mitigation witness list. Okay, it comes now, Brian, through attorneys, trial, witnesses. Now, does it appear on here? No, it must be the prosecution's. Apologies, let me go to that one. I've seen it. I know I've seen it. Is that the one that's been unsealed? My God, I've got way too many documents. Way too many. I've downloaded them all and everything else. We've got some ex parte witnesses. Okay, so we are looking at June 2025. Continuous discovery, sealed documents, witness lists, sheriff's returns, scheduling. It's going to do this. You know what? There's no point trying to find this on a live when my computer is struggling. So I'm going to close those down. That might help if I close down the other 60 billion documents I've got open. And I'm going to switch back over to Finder here. Because it's not going to be that. Let's close that down. Okay. Yeah, so interesting. TJ and Colin talking about is it Colin? God, I need my glasses. Talking about the DNA. So it was Tim Smoldridge that discovered the fridge, discovered the fridge was not working. Same person that is couriering the DNA around. Let me just move this out a bit. Let's see if we get there. Latent prints, blue powder, DNA glove. Yada 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 yada. MPD reports. It is. Yeah, it is entirely fucked. Absolutely. So we've got parallel investigations going on there. We've got the case jacket, cane of custody. My God, I'm losing my mind. Chain of custody. Forensic reports. We've got stuff where they've gone to Koberger's apartment. There is, if you look at the prosecution's witness list, it is in the release documents on the Idaho court portal for December. And the name, there's a T and it's redacted. And if you try the right font size, it will fit Tim Smoldridge. Why is Moscow Police Department's evidence custodian, the person who checks in and checks out the evidence at the Moscow Police Department, why is his name redacted from the docs? So it was Blaker, Sharon Arredondo, and Tim Smoldridge at Moscow who seem to be the custodians back and forwards for these DNA samples. All three of them are on the witness lists. All three of them would have attended the trial. Coke does not contain codeine, no. And neither does the blue powder contain amphetamines like the DNA report says it does, because it was not tested for opioids. Would you believe it or not? With literally the previous, no, what are we looking, 22nd of October? No, October 2022, one of the biggest arrests in Washington state by the DEA. And they arrested a bunch of people bringing 1,016 pounds of methamphetamine, 9 kilograms of fentanyl, 330,000 fentanyl pills, 25 kilograms of cocaine, 15.5 kilograms of heroin, 43 guns, and $1 million in cash. But let's not test for fentanyl in the blue powder, even though fentanyl is predominantly going to be passed off as M30s or blue pills. We don't need to test that. What absolute garbage. Becca, yeah, pharmaceutical breakdown. Fent and meth are massive around here. They sure are, unfortunately. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes. No, let's not do the meat and potatoes. We'll leave Harsh for his lovely UK dinner. I do miss the cold weather at Christmas. It's going to be quite warm here in Australia. So I've got reporting manuals and stuff. Let's look at here though. I found this interesting. Is this going to open? Open Sesame. So there's an out-of-state witness, which I would assume is Anne Parham. Why is this one in there? So Criminal Justice Information Services Division Uniform Crime Reporting Program. Let me just open this in the window because all you can see is my mouse moving like I'm a crazy person if I haven't switched the document over. Oh, it's there. Okay. Monroe County's ties to murder trial, which is Anne Parham. But. Tested for benzos, yes, Beck, but also that sample for benzos was changed. I don't know why, whether that was more or less. I literally only tied these strings together today. So now it's just to actually make it make sense to myself so I can communicate it to anyone else. Suspect arrested in Monroe County, Pocono record. Surprise, first assistant district attorney. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing where it's going to get a bit weird. Bit weird. It's already a bit weird. Last week we talked about, and TJ, you'll remember, last week we talked about Brian's job at WSU and what he was doing previously. So he starts work. He's working for the Pleasant Valley High School, and his job is in their public safety campus security. He's a security guard. And in fact, somewhere in that myriad of documents you've seen, I've got an article about how he helped with one of his colleagues to save someone's life when they're having I can't remember whether they're having a heart attack or they're having something, and he goes and gets a defib and blah, 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 blah. But he was listed there as being one of the people who was critical in saving a colleague's life at work, but you don't see that in mainstream media. So then he resigns. Now, the mainstream media has said he was fired from Pleasant Valley High School. Absolute bullshit. I have the document. We looked at it last week. I'm not even going to try and find it right now, but the committee meeting for Pleasant Valley High School has resignation 2021. So 22nd of June 2021. WSU's recorded him as being part of the program in June 2022. Now, I've looked extensively to see what was Brian doing for 12 months. We have from mid-year 2021 to mid-year 2022, there's a gap there. Can't find anything. And I thought that's unusual. It is unusual. So then let's look at where we got from there. If I pull up the next bit of weirdness here. Oh my god, there's just so much that's come up. Okay, Smoldridge, forensic reports. Okay, let's look at the 2025 case reference because this is where I ended up going down the rabbit hole. If we look, some power thing just sparked. I will open a document in a minute, but we're going to look at a document I found in. Okay, maybe I'll just show you my finder. That's going to be an easier way of doing this because there is just, it's just wild. It's wild. So I'll close this up and we're going to look at trying to sort out all the documents in this, and it's wild. So let's look at this month. So Colin, look, got a bunch myself, and they're all meant to work hand in hand, right? Dorbit is a precedent that was quoted by Anne in the case, and it's regarding another matter where someone was brought up on murder charges with the prosecution not actually providing any evidence. Crazily enough. So then we've got the code manual for NCIC. Okay, so did you know Stickergate? Does the name look familiar? So when I was looking at Brady list violations to go, who's got the Brady list violation going on? And we've got this matter, Wilson versus City of Moscow, regarding two young kids. They're out putting stickers on there. If anyone's watching from Moscow, you know exactly what we're talking about. That they were sticking stickers on street poles that were about the COVID mandates, and it was a bit of a protest to the very hardline approach that the law enforcement were taking around COVID. And the kids were pulled over by police. They weren't read their Miranda rights. They were taken into custody. The father was not allowed to see the kids. It just happens that that's Doug Wilson's kids. And if you know about the church, you know about Doug Wilson, Moscow, and all the crap going on there. That is that one. We are not going to cover that tonight because the church thing is a whole other live with so much stuff going on. There is, what's this one? It's Moscow police report. Let me find where I'm going with this. I am going somewhere, trust me. Okay, so that is, we're going to go now to January of 2025. So at the same time as we've got the, where are we, 23, 22, 25. So we're getting ready to go to trial. We've got 6. Oh my God, I've lost my way. I've lost my way. But I started flagging stuff here. Google, witnesses. Did I put them? Where have I moved them to? I've lost. Trying to keep track of this many documents. This is exactly what they're trying to do with this case, is actually bury us in documents. But what I found was around the the timing of different things in this case. Okay, so let's just expand these all and I might find it. Okay, open sesame. Open sesame. That's why there's so many more hidden in here. So many more. Okay, so IGG. I've got warrants for sealing stuff. I've got stuff about the Franks. We've got third party requests. Okay, February. So here we are. This document. Let me switch over to right page. Here we go. U.S. Attorney Josh Hurwitz concludes service. Yeah, very confused, divert, manipulate. Exactly, TJ. U.S. Attorney Josh Hurwitz, February 13, just in time for Valentine's Day, so he can have a day off from being the top federal law enforcement official for Idaho. Last day on the job for the OCDTF, and then there would be a filing following that around him being added as a special prosecution agent. Okay, so what we'll find, and this is okay, so we're talking fugitive wanted in Idaho, February. Okay, motion in limine. Here we go. Here is the IGG refrigerated document. Oh dear, dearie dear. Here we go. And that's the one. The Moscow Police Report number sequence 309. And it's dated the 30th of January 2025. So very, very delayed. So on Friday, January 24th, which I would assume Friday, January 24th, 2025, at approximately 10 to 8 in the morning, TS, think we can safely assume that that's Tim Smaldridge. I won't even bother trying to match the typeface because it's going to be clear. Arrived at the Moscow Police Department to start my shift. When I reached my door, I could hear an electronic beeping noise. Upon entering, I determined the noise was an alarm sounding from the evidence refrigerator unit. The digital temperature display from the alarm sounding from the evidence refrigerator unit, the digital temperature display read 60 degrees Fahrenheit. When I left work the day before, Thursday, January 23rd at midday, half a day off, there was no alarm sounding. Evidence freezer, which is a separate unit, was not affected. Contacted supervisor Captain Hathaway, recommended transfer items stored in the fridge to secure outbuilding where other evidence is kept. In an outbuilding. Wonder if they even have a door on the outbuilding. Moscow, what the fuck? At approximately 12:30, so half an hour later, somehow. Oh no, 12 o'clock was the other day. So a couple of hours later, Hathaway's bought a new 20 cubic foot refrigerator to the outbuilding, plugged it in, and set the temperature. That's impressive. That's the fastest Moscow police has ever moved, to the best of my knowledge. Prove me wrong. No DNA extracts were stored in the evidence refrigerator. Excuse me. Those are stored in the evidence freezer. Below is a list of items affected that were being stored in the evidence. Now, I will match those up to the other ones, but I'm sure in this list of stuff, all of the things, all the things, including DNA swabs, which he had literally just fucking said went in there. I can see DNA swab, DNA swab. Let's match them up. Not now. I'm going to match them up because what else have I got to do with my day? Let's do that. Anyway, this is so messed up. This is so uh ay, ay, ay. Tired and curious at the same time. Such a weird combo. So there's his narrative, which is there we go again. We're going to close those down and I'm going to switch back to here and we're going to look at the next document. Come on. Finder, finder, finder. The old refrigerator incident. Like I've fixed a fridge with a piece of speaker wire when I was pretending they didn't need an electrician's license. It worked for another 4 years. Fine. But seriously, dog ate the homework. I think the dog ate a lot of homework in this case. Okay, so we've got all the documents here. We've got Payne's testimony. So ICR 12 seems to be the thing around the IgG. Going to put together. So the sealed hearing on January 23rd of 2025 didn't, it wasn't sealed on January 23rd. There was a sealed hearing on the 22nd. So let me go. Where do we go? So we're talking the start of the year. We're looking at, New Year's Day. They come back to work the next day. There's Exhibit S1. Now, if you look at Exhibit S1 in some of the other documents, one of the other documents talked about Exhibit S1 being pages of the 2,000 page document around DNA. But then the actual Exhibit S1 in these docs that the prosecution has, or it's been filed on the court, is a picture of Maddie Mogan. Make that make sense. Anyway, Exhibit A, stipulated motion to seal. Exhibit A, motion to compel, 16B7. So ICR 12 scheduling order, which is around the IgG. Frank, IgG, Franks, etc., etc. Motion to under guilt phase X. Amazon order seeking state's objection. Apple order. AT&T sealed. Exhibit A sealed. Exhibit order sealed. Franks. Ada County. So that's from an older one that came over. Idaho Rule 11 plea deal. Now, type in chat if you know about the Pennsylvania plea deal. So we're going to look down to proceedings generally. I said third party order denying witness stipulated. IgG closed hearing notice. So I found this interesting because we've got most of any of the documents in January are about sealing the documents. And then the media, I think this is the media. Let's just check. Wendy Olson. Okay, so American Broadcasting Companies. Yeah, motion be heard interested party. That's all petitioners are denied. I think that was around proposed order. They write a proposed order themselves granting like sorry, media, you cannot grant yourself an order. Go jump. Okay, objection to unsealing the IgG, renewed motion to be interested party. What I found interesting is notice is given January 22nd. So this is separate hearing via WebEx and it's sealed. In and for County of Ada. And at the same time, sealing defendants, supplemental witness list, IGG, etc., etc. Now there's a parallel investigation going on at the same time. Let's go to that. Let's close the court documents because at the same time as all of that, so we've got US Marshals arrest fugitive in what's this one? Drug trafficker sentenced to 10 years. So Josh Hurwitz and stopping that. Yep, so that all happens. So then 13th, let's move forward from here. Closed hearing this one. So it's only, sorry, let me just open one before that. Prohack Vice admission. So that's when Bika Barlow joins the defense team. Motion for Prohack Vice. Bika Barlow in the above matter pursuant to IBCR 227. And she's from the Bar of California. Closed hearing transcript. This one. Yeah, imagine being Ann Taylor. You know that this is not 64 terabytes, but it's a shit ton of documents. That's why I'm having trouble finding some of them, but I've, as you can see, labeling them by year, month, day, and some keywords gives me half a freaking chance. And I find this one because I bowerbird the internet like crazy. Thanks ADHD. 3 Aryan Brotherhood prison gang members convicted of RICO conspiracy. So um, and murder in aid of racketeering. Fresno, California, February 18. Only 4 days. 4 days after Hurwitz has resigned from his role. Federal jury found California State Prison inmate John Stinson, 70, guilty of one count of conspiracy to conduct affairs of an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering. Found California State Prison inmate Francis Clement, 58, guilty of conspiracy, conduct affairs of enterprise through a pattern of racketeering, etc., etc. Jury found California State inmate Kenneth Johnson, 63, guilty of conspiracy to conduct affairs of an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity, 2 counts of murder in aid of racketeering for the murders of Alan Roshansky and Ruslan Megam. That one. Now, I'm not saying that Johnson and Johnson is not just a bathroom product, but the names, I haven't made any matches. Thanks, Christine. Lovely to have you. Oh, Ange, hello. Um, you're going to listen as you sleep. Shall I use a soothing, calming voice for you, Ange? Because this got me pretty riled up all day. However, racketeering, conspiracy to kill, murder, what great terms to go to sleep on. Weaver, Pitchford, Collins, Perkins, and Gray. Now, I also haven't found any correlation between a Gray that might be a legal representative for one of the parents in this case and Justin Gray, but I haven't yet looked. Just saying. What I will say is that this is a multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency drug enforcement consortium. MAGIC. MAGEC. You can see at the bottom of the document, they're MAGIC. This whole thing's been a whole bunch of magic or sleight of hand by multi-jurisdictional. Now, for those that might have joined in later in this live, and I don't even know how long I've been going for, it doesn't really matter. But at the start, we talked about the senior DEA official, now retired, who was arrested. The press release came out this week where they had been conspiring to what was it, $12 million in cash and hundreds of kilos of drugs and guns and in support of Cartel de Jalisco New Generacion, or CJNG. And here we are. What are we looking at? We're looking at, I could be making all this up, but here are the docs. 5 days later, after Hurwitz resigns, that we have 3 key figures from the Aryan prison gang being charged. So then we're looking through so many more. Now, what I found interesting off the back of this, in Down Under too. Yep. We're in WA. Wait a while, just like my internet tonight. Let's have a look. So a lot of documents came out around this same time. Let's look at, where are we looking? We're looking at, there's Bicker on 20th of Feb. And then 2 days earlier, we have the Aryan prison dudes. I will need some throat lozenges. But welcome to how my brain works. I was going to draw a mind map and I just ran out of time. Lucky to even get the live up. But I found these interesting. Look, here we are. Criminal jury instructions. Membership of the committee for the Idaho Supreme Court. Let's see what this one is. Now, bearing in mind, this is the 21st of February. So again, only a couple of weeks after resignation from his role as the lead or the head of the OCDTF Drug Task Force, membership of the Idaho Criminal Jury Instructions Committee. Following individuals appointed to said committee and following released. So Regan Jamison, Magistrate Judge for the 4th Judicial District, is appointed to the Criminal Jury Instructions Committee. I'm not going to say where I am, but yeah, other end of town. And then Kira Dale. Now, I haven't looked up who Kira Dale is. Kira Dale, Magistrate Judge for the 4th Judicial District, released from duties associated with said committee with appreciation for their service. Now, I'm not saying they're involved in this whole thing, I'm not. But the timing, I find interesting. I find very interesting. So then there's a lot of motions in limine around challenging the death penalty, inflammatory staff, expert testimony, use of the term murder, bushy eyebrows, psychopaths, blah, 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 blah. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. It is just freaking wild. Redacted, states motion, stipulated agreement, order temporary sealing. Then we move into March. So by this time in March, we've got more court orders. Let's have a look at this one. I can't remember which documents. I was flagging them earlier. Okay. Mexican national unlawfully in United States. I don't think this one had much linkage other than Pocatello, Judge Nye, and okay, so there was one I read, and I'm going to find it in here somewhere, but it was around judges being threatened. Judges being threatened by someone. Okay, let me find it. It's here. I know it's here. Riley Nolan's affidavit around 17th of March. State's response, IGG. So I was also looking at any other precedents. This is an unpublished opinion, but it's Garcia talking about post-conviction relief for second-degree murder, relating to, where's the factual, 2017, went out for dinner downtown Boise, consumed meth, blah, 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 China Blue, downtown. Yeah, anyway, that's one that has some linkages, but we'll get to that. There's another order sealing the 911 call, which we've seen. Objection to defendant's objection states self-authentication records. Objection, response. God, they just really are trying to waste everybody's time. Not waste everybody's time, but what a crock of garbage. Okay, so here are the ones that are marked in blue on here. Let me just see if you can see the blue on my screen. I'm going to move this over a bit. Okay, is that going to appear? It should, down there. Let's move this in. So much freaking about. Okay, so now you can see there's little blue dots there. These are the ones that I flagged to actually have the DNA reference number in them. The other ones that didn't have that particular sample, the K bar. So there is something in relating to self-authenticating records, the 911 call, and AT&T timing advance records. Now, in my opinion, if we just got Cyray and the AT&T records, it would just show this for what it is. I think there's a reason that Cyray was quietened. I do. Then we have Madison Allen, who was appeared for the prosecution. She was apparently the jury questions expert, blah, blah, blah. Bushy eyebrows stuff, motion to eliminate evidence, Amazon. Okay, so then there's an order granting the state to leave. Okay, so Clarkson drug bust on the 25th of March. Now, I was saying Coburg was there. Maybe, maybe not. I don't think so. Regional SWAT team. 500 block of Popular Street. Is there one called Popular Street? Doesn't. Okay, the Mackenzies. Yeah, he was removed quite quickly. And I think you'll find that when we look at all of this together, order sealing, order sealing. Okay, what do we got here? This one, 26th of March, Nortano gang member, 7 years, Caldwell. During a traffic stop, officers learnt Aguirre had absconded from supervision with Idaho Department of Corrections, probation and parole. Found a loaded firearm, 66 fentanyl pills, prosecuted by U.S. attorney hired by the Ada County Prosecuting Attorney's Office with funds provided by the Oregon, Idaho High Intensity Drug Trafficking Areas Program. Now, this is after Hurwitz left, but provides funding resources to multi-agency drug enforcement initiatives, including the Special Assistant U.S. Attorney position, part of Project Safe Neighborhoods. On May 26, 2021, Department launched a violent crime reduction strategy. So we're talking around May 26th. Now, coincidentally, 1 month later was when Koberger ended at Pleasant Valley High School. And we don't know what he did between then and appearing at WSU. But there are some indicators here. Okay, so then we have Southern California, same date, Southern California man, sentence 13. Okay, law enforcement conducted a welfare check. Right, I don't recall reading that one, but Boise and Postal Service on that one. Moving along, US Marshals on the 30th. Arrest suspected Nortenos murderers in multi-state manhunt. Following a tragic March 29, 2025 drive-by shooting in Moses Lake, Washington. Okay, Richland, Washington. Wasn't it Fry that joined the Richland police? I'm confused. But participating agencies. So you got Moses Lake Police, U.S. Marshals Service, Aviation, Domestic, Oregon, California, Incident Management, OCDTF, Hurwood, Special Operations Group, TIG Rocky Mountains, U.S. Regional Fugitive Task Force, Benton County Sheriff's Office, Stockton, Spokane, U.S. Border Patrol, FBI, United States Attorney's Office for Eastern District of Washington, Washington County Sheriff's Office, Oregon, Washington State Department of Corrections, Washington State Patrol, Yakima PD, Yakima County Sheriff's Office, and many other agencies. Cops trying to keep control of the drug running, not stop it. Yes, correct. However, I'd like to think that this has all been part of the Pacific Northwest Violent Offender Task Force as part of a U.S. Marshal-led partnership comprising federal, state, and local law enforcement officers from Washington, Oregon, and Alaska. Task Force primary mission: locate, arrest, return to the justice system most violent and egregious federal and state fugitives. So glad I got egregious right. Winning. Okay, defendant, blah, 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 blah. Then we move into April. And 2nd of April, this guy rocks up into the case. Notice of appearance, Joshua Hurwitz. Where are we? Down here. Yeah. Joshua Hurwitz. 2nd of April 2025. Idaho State Bar 9527. Appear as an attorney for the state in this matter. And yes, he did wrap it up incredibly quickly. So then we have supplemental request for discovery, motion to seal, sealing. They hit the ceiling with the amount of sealing that they were sealing. It's ridiculous. Then there's a traffic stop. There's a lot of documents in this that are for someone else, but kind of tie into the narrative that we've been told. It's like they've found a storybook. They found a story. That's what they've done. Okay, so law enforcement initiated traffic stop for failing to make a complete stop at a stop sign and failing to use a turn signal. Carpenter was a passenger in the vehicle. The driver of the vehicle provided the officer with her identification, could change, but refused to provide his name. Anyway, backpack between the legs, found the backpack, blah, 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 blah. Actually, I'm going to read more of that because it gets weird. Is this one it gets weird? Yeah, so drug dog, officer returned to the vehicle, standard review, suppression bifurcated. Okay, traffic stop. Carpenter. Oh, there's another one. There's another one I'm thinking of that comes up later in this. So then there is. Is that the same document? I think I might have duplicated some documents. Denied motion to suppress. Okay. Now, interestingly, a Goncars one around the same time. It's the main. It might not be related at all. It might not. Appeals from a sentence imposed by the trial. And look, there's Murphy. This is the thing about this freaking case. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Like when Kaylee's dancing with Murphy, how do we know that's a dog? Do we? I don't actually know if we do. Goncalves committed the offence while in a blind, jealous rage. We're not persuaded by this argument, but we agree with Goncalves' other argument. His attempted murder sentence should be vacated because the court erred in finding as an aggravating factor. Anyway, hotel clerk talks about a hotel, talks about, blind rage, murder, da 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 da. There is just too many coincidences there. We're going to move on so I don't focus on that one too much, but I found that interesting myself. Then we're looking at the 18th of April. Caldwell couple sentenced to 133 and 96 months in federal prison. Boise, two people from Boise, from Caldwell, conspiring to distribute meth, heroin, cocaine, and the acting US attorney while they appoint a new attorney. December 2023, learned that these two were involved in distributing drugs. Provided a customer a 3x5 card containing different types and amounts of illicit controlled substances customers could order from the menu. Interesting. Traveled to California and Washington to purchase and conceal drugs in the engine of his truck. Search warrant, etc., etc. Again, we have the Special Assistant U.S. Attorney. So we don't actually say the name, but Special Assistant U.S. Attorney hired by Ada County Prosecuting Attorney's Office with funds provided by the Oregon-Idaho High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program. Office of National Drug Control Policy. Okay. Let's keep going. District of Idaho. Armed repeat offender sentenced to 97 months in federal prison for drug and gun charges. I am going somewhere with all of this, by the way. It's going to Ada County 2017 from October 2023 through April. Controlled buys with law enforcement, so confidential informants. Now, there is a bunch of orders, and I've got to find where I've put them. Okay, so complaint about AmeriCorps and Trump, layer upon layer of, cough, exactly. 119th House of Reps. Now, why the hell did this come up for me? Has Pennsylvania in there? I've actually got a congressional statement somewhere further on. I think I'll leave that for another live because that's just gonna break me. January 21st, 24, kindness driving at a high rate of speed, pursuit. Sheriff's deputy made a video call to a female friend, told the friend that he threw a bag with her name on it out the car window during the pursuit. Kindness gave her the location, told her to get the bag. Officers responded and found the bag. The bag contained a large amount of cash and 350 grams of fentanyl pills. And again, what? Idaho State Police, Blackfoot, Shelley, yada, yada, yada. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Um, yeah, I went into full like tinfoil hat mode, so I apologize. April 30th, 2025. This is all rolling on from Herwit leaving this task force, but he seems to be named without being named in these documents. And then in Coeur d'Alene, April 30th this year, Isle murdered Spencer on Nez Perce Indian Reservation. There was no fight or disagreement. Isle's car broke down in front of the home when Elias went to see what was going on. Isle shot him 5 times. Elias' family found his body on the sidewalk in front of the home. This is horrible. US Marshal Service, November 2023, along with FBI, who's 19 years old. Salt Lake City FBI. Now, I find this bit interesting. Profoundly impacted not but the community's sense of safety. Why is Salt Lake City? Why is Salt Lake City? I'm going to get to that in another live. Like I'm not going to go sideways on all of these, but I will point out a couple of things. Idaho Falls, man, let's go through them. 135 months. Maya, possession to distribute fentanyl. August 18, 2023, near Fort Hall Casino parking lot. After reports of a fight, after locating the car, observed fentanyl pills. I'm losing my mind. Fentanyl pills through a window. Searched Maya's car and found approximately 12,000 fentanyl pills, large quantity of cash. Came from Arizona. And we've got Nye, the FBI, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Am I looking at conspiracies? Maybe. Then comes to Christensen. It's an unpublished opinion, but charged with trafficking in methamphetamine. Prior to trial counsel received affidavits from 2 women in which both women took ownership of the methamphetamine. For a trial, each woman took the witness stand and invoked their Fifth Amendment right to silence. They were then dismissed as a witness without making further statement. The jury found Christensen guilty, sentenced to a unified term of 10 years with a minimum period of confinement of 3 and 1.5 years. Now, the reason that I came across this was firstly, it is around witnesses, silence of witnesses, and Christensen. The name rings a bell somewhere else. Can't remember whether Christensen, I think there was a Christensen involved in some of the issues with the church, the particular church of issues in that area, but that's for another one. So then we get to, I know it's here somewhere, we'll get there. 2 men sentenced federal prison in separate trafficking cases. Utah, David Eric Traverso, 156 months possessing fentanyl with intent to distribute. Found the individual in possession of 200 fentanyl pills, 2 hotel room keys, and applied for a search warrant. And got that warrant. Searched the hotel rooms, found Traversa overdosing, engaged in life-saving measures while waiting for the ambulance. In the hotel room, officers found fentanyl pills and drug paraphernalia, several different sized baggies. Ambulance took Traversa to hospital. He received treatment. They found a black drawstring bag attached to his genitals. Delightful. That drawstring bag contained 576 fentanyl pills. In total, the fentanyl seized during a traffic stop and found in his possession, and the weight, 5 years of supervised release. Like, he's tied a bag of fentanyl pills to his testicles. Hey, okay. May 2024, a blue Range Rover. Who had a Range Rover and what colour was it? Blue Range Rover. During the traffic stop, officers developed probable cause to search the Range Rover. When they searched the trunk, they found a black metal safe containing a small. These, Christine, these are more than just the Idaho court records. These are the parallel investigations, and they all link in together in some form or another in that particular Pacific Northwest region, or the regions blend a bit when we're talking multinational drug cartels. They are related cases, and it all comes down to this: the Oregon Idaho high intensity drug trafficking area. I believe it was True Crime Design. Check out her channel. There's a video on there around um, the what the HIDTA is. We also did one on our channel using some of her content, amongst other things around human trafficking and that relationship between human trafficking and drug trafficking. But this, underneath it all, is SALSA, funded by the Eastern Idaho Partnership and State of Idaho. It's a coalition of local city and county officials in Eastern Idaho, as well as the Idaho Department of Correction. It allows law enforcement to utilize federal criminal justice system to prosecute, convict, and sentence violent armed criminals and drug traffickers. These criminals then often receive stiffer penalties than they might in state courts, which basically says we've got some bigger fish that are just going to get a slap on the wrist if we try and prosecute them at a state level. They're involved in much, much bigger things. It's all related. And we've got the prison gang. So US Attorney Office. So then we have, why is this audio? That's Talbot's audio about. He was subpoenaed for the case. Some audio recordings may not have been included in evidence or reports. Contacted Gilbertson regarding these files. Gilbertson's definitely got the shits. Did the runs. What is it? What? It's giving me the shits. Anyway, let's move on because um yeah, look, I'll wrap it on for a while. I will summarize all this in a video, Christina, but yeah. TJ, you looked up the national security element. Like, why would they say this case involves national security drugs trafficking listed, of course? Good question. Morning loss of Russell Nelson, Salt Lake City. So that is around the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. We'll come to that in another live. I won't do any spoilers yet for that. Then we have this one. So we're now moving into May, and in Washington State, there's a man sentenced to 11 years in prison for sex trafficking. Dominic Terrell Gonzalez, 35, 15 years supervised release. And it all ties in again to some of the investigations happening in that region. Homeland Security investigations in Seattle. And there is some other linkages in here around. So Homeland Security, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives of the ATF, Olympia, Vancouver, Idaho State Police, Ada County, Idaho Sheriff's Office, Department of Agriculture, Office of Inspector General, Department of Homeland Security. Check out Trafficking in Treasure Valley, a video I put together a while back on the channel. Talks about Idaho's relationship with children going missing, even as recently as last week. We'll get to that in the church stuff. Oh my God. There's only so many things. So here we are. So this swung by again, May 20th. It was in there earlier date. We've looked at this. October 2020, Johnson and Clement ordered a murder during the execution of which another individual was also killed. Johnson and Clement also ordered another murder of an individual who was subsequently killed. It was further proven at trial that in February 2022, Clements ordered the murder of an individual, and the following month, in March 2022, Clement ordered the murder of two more individuals. For each murder, the killings were ordered because defendants believed the victims either violated gang rules or owed the gang money. I'll leave you to put those links together from previous narrative. According to court documents and evidence presented at trial, Stinson was a high-ranking leader of the Aryan Brotherhood and had substantial authority over the enterprise, including sponsoring multiple individuals for membership, resolving disputes among members, and approving the murder of current or former members. During the investigation, Stinson used a contraband cell phone within his prison cell to conduct business on behalf of the Aryan Brotherhood. The jury heard some of these communications from Stinson through court-authorized wiretap conversations, pen, trap, and trace. You'll see that there are sealed documents. G'day, Jeff. There's sealed documents including the sealing of the pen, trap, and trace in this particular case. Convicted defendants led a notorious prison gang, committed ruthless murders, widespread methamphetamine trafficking, and perpetuated a culture of mayhem, fear, and disorder. Yes, they did. So, product of an extensive investigation by the ATF with assistance from Office of Correctional Safety, US Marshals again. Okay, San Diego, LA, California, OCDTF. We know who is in that. Yeah, exactly, Colin. Okay, June 23rd. That's why I had it further up. June 20. Hang on, June 23rd, but 24. Okay. 11 defendants. There are 5 defendants awaiting trial, and 3 defendants have pled guilty. So 11. Let's move forward to Hendricks. Let me just quickly have a look. Okay. Okay, that's for Ron. Virginia, Maryland. Okay, that is around the Pentagon. Holding a cell phone as he was driving on the Pentagon reservation. Now, I know this might seem far-fetched and not linked, but it's still part of Project Safe Neighborhoods. And it came up because of the mobile phones. So I got the AT&T timing advance records, and Sire was out of the case fairly quickly. But at the same time, there was also, if I go down to maybe in here, Boise. Let's have a look at this one. Moving into June. We're just about at June anyway. Let's just jump into these ones then. So we're talking 2nd of June, start of the new financial year. And I might just open this. No, I don't want to open it in Chrome. Go away. Okay, so 2 interrelated drug rings in the Seattle area taken down in a series of arrests following wiretap. I don't know why it came out in this format. Giant text, but it doesn't quite do what we need it to do. Operation Jungle Strike. Okay, let's Operation Jungle Strike. And this is, let's just go back up. So it's about a wiretap in Seattle, June 25. 14 people indicted in late May, 11 taken into custody in coordinated arrests, ongoing investigation of drug traffickers with ties to drug trafficking in Seattle's International District and homeless campers. Yeah, why are they saying no drugs? Because that's the parallel investigation. We don't want to confuse the two because then you might look at drugs, people might start searching for drugs on search engines, and then they find things going on in a parallel investigation that is coming to a head. It's coming to a massive effing head. It is all going to just come together. They do go to Costa Rica. It's transnational, multinational, transnational cartels. Country music in the house, more towards alcohol. Yeah. Well, you'd think so, Jeff, except I can tell you right now, there were drugs in that house. There's photos of it as well, mate. So I don't know where, if you want to keep hiding under the rock that it's just they're having a couple of beers and singing Take Me Home Country Road, you're delusional. Like, let's just call it for what it is. It is, there were drugs at the house, it's a known drug house, multiple reports from different sources, and a parallel investigation that just happens to tie in pretty effing close. So, Jeff, yes, there were drugs there. Sorry, mate. Deal with it. Moving on. California, Western District of Washington. Oregon, Southern California, 5 indictments, January 25, blah, 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 fentanyl, meth, and coke. Major supply of deadly drugs to the International District and other communities throughout Seattle yielded enough lethal doses to kill everyone in Seattle twice. Enough to kill everyone in Seattle twice. Washington National Guard. Let's go to the next one, shall we? Two interrelated drug rings. This one's actually formatted properly. So here we are. 14 people indicted in late May, 11 were taken into custody in coordinated arrest last week as part of an ongoing investigation into drug trafficking. Yeah, look, 10 beers, not a wobble. In fact, there's like a, if we look at it as a standard deviation curve, there's a number of beers you can have, and then you get exceptionally good at playing snooker or pool or whatever you want to call it at a pub. And then there's the following beer when you think you're blitzing it, that it just goes completely sideways. And it's very hard to maintain that top end of the curve, much like the DNA results actually maintaining the top end of the curve to provide a valid DNA sample in this effing case. Yeah, guys, just ignore Jeff. He's gonna try and troll the place. That's what he does. Okay, so then we have all of these people. Washington, 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 Seattle, Washington, Washington, Washington. Yeah. Now I've got some other linkages to certain people in this, the names that we know, but with, I think I'll put that in a video rather than doing it in a live. It's probably a better way to go about it. Major supply of deadly drugs. Anyway, so attorney's office. Yep, cool. Multi-agency approach, ICDTF. Then we have Kettler in Michigan. So we're talking, it's like multiple states. Portland, Oregon, large quantities of meth for distribution in Idaho. This is what I've been struggling with in this case, is all of the focus on Idaho when actually everything's happening at a much, much bigger scale. Like, let's look at our navals, look at the Moscow police, look at the, the doctored footage. And Jeff, you're a video engineer of 30 years, you were telling me the other day. Just what the Moscow Police Department need. Plenty of work in the area. Actually, they've got plenty of help, it would seem. Okay, Portland, Oregon, regular basis, large quantities of meth and fentanyl. Okay, pulled over for a traffic stop. Pulled over for a traffic violation. They observed drug paraphernalia, a canine trained in the detection, so maybe canine Ragnar. Subsequent search of the vehicle uncovered 4,300 fentanyl pills, half a pound of fentanyl powder, more than a quarter of a pound of meth, and a variety of other substances. She admitted to investigators she frequently travelled to Portland to purchase significant quantities of meth and fentanyl for distribution in Idaho. But no, never driven a white Elantra down to Portland, Oregon and crashed it into a lamppost, officer. I don't know what you're talking about. Excuse me. Inspector Morse prosecuted the case. Fabulous. And again, Oregon, Idaho, high intensity drug trafficking area, because Oregon and Idaho, high intensity drug trafficking area. I don't really need to say much more on that one. Uh, okay, witness list, states amended witness list. We got a whole bunch of names there. I'm going to go through that another day because there's some interesting names in that list. Why? Now, I don't think I highlighted that in yellow. I think it came to me highlighted in yellow. I don't know anymore. I'm losing my mind. Coeur d'Alene Fire Chief. So then we get to Coeur d'Alene. Around the same time, let me just close that down for a second. So the FBI's dealing with, there's lots of stuff going on in June of this year. Okay, so lots of stuff going on. This is interesting. I found this one interesting. I only found this today. Now, I'm not saying that this is a person related to anyone in the case, but I find it intriguing regarding this case for the timing. June, when all the shit's going down with something happening in the courts, and there's people are saying that there's security you can see and security you can't, and there's all sorts of like weird performative behavior happening in the courts and the whole show and shine, because this case blew up across the world. I mean, it's testament here to the fact that there's people from multiple countries here. 35 of us at the moment. Well, okay. Colorado Diaz Goncalves case placed on leave as it garners attention. Colorado Sheriff's Office, who pulled over Diaz Goncalves earlier this week, preceding her detention by immigration authorities, been placed on leave as the investigation into the matter continues. Meantime, Utah immigrant earlier this month near Grand Junction, Colorado, garnering more attention from the likes of Colorado Governor Jared Polis and an advocacy group for young immigrants that compares her case to that of Zemania Arias Cristobal, who grew up in Georgia, though she's originally from Mexico, detained by immigration officials in Georgia. Yada yada yada, goes on to talk about the program she was in. Okay, what it comes down to with this Homeland Security. So the law enforcement officer who pulled her over for a traffic violation had uploaded her ID into a Signal Messenger conversation, and there just happened to be someone from ICE who was connected to that conversation. ICE pulled her over shortly the same day, and because her visa had expired or something, and then they are threatening to deport her, even though she's been here under a visa since she was like a young child, and she's under a protective visa or something. So, and that's illegal. The law enforcement can't provide ICE with people's details. Just happened to be that this ICE person was in the chat. What absolute rubbish. And I just wonder whether, if you've seen one of my previous videos, which was really early on, Massachusetts, Veronica Goncalves, look it up. What's his name? Can't remember the guy's name, but there was a lady by the name of Veronica Goncalves who was murdered in her driveway with her young daughter in the car by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend went into the house, and he was found to have ingested battery acid and died shortly after. And this was around almost exactly the same day as the Idaho 4. So then we have another Goncalves, and yes, this is later, but I'm wondering if there's a backlash in terms of something Goncalves related and the stuff that's coming out in that particular region. Now that's just a wild hypothesis. I'm not saying it is, it just happens to be timed really interesting, along with, we won't go into this one now, but the timing of the Coeur d'Alene fire chiefs returning. I can't remember what the date was because I've got to put all that together. Parallel investigation into Wanderer, reserve media seating. Then we've got the MPD reports, the guilty plea in July. Okay, we're into July. And then these ones with a weird date here. These are, in terms of the format, they are Pennsylvania court. Okay, so we have the no contact orders for Mortensen, Mogan, Laramie, Nodal, and Cars Funk. We have sentencing hearing, so photo of all 6 residents. So these are photos. They've turned exhibit S1 to S25 that earlier was saying S1 is about DNA into a photo of Maddie Mogan. And then there's redacted orders and all of the no contact orders and vacating stuff. And interestingly, at the same time, or actually earlier, just as we're getting the judgment of conviction order, there's 2 documents that are also from the state of Idaho. And I'm not suggesting anything, I'm just saying this is interesting that the following Idaho Supreme Court judicial committees are decommissioned as of the date of this order, which is 15th of July 2025. Appellate Business Process Committee, the Bail Bonds Committee, the Counties and Courts Committee, the Criminal Mediation Committee, Death Penalty Council Review and Recommendation Committee, Judicial Recruitment Committee, Jury Committee, and Wellness Committee. Chief Justice, Idaho Supreme Court. Now, no longer required. We acknowledge the time and effort of those who served on these committees. I find this strange. Death penalty, juries, criminal mediation, etc., etc. I find that weird. I find that weird with the timing of everything else going on. So then, same day, same court, pausing work on selected judicial committees. Yes, I go deep dive. I go down the rabbit hole across different things outside of the court docs, outside of Idaho, outside of the names and the familiar narrative we're being told. Here's another one. Same date, 15th of July 2025, pausing work on selected judicial committees. Ordered that the following Idaho Supreme Court judicial committees will pause their work until further order of the court, advancing justice, civil jury instructions, and civil rules. Civil and civil, fine. These are just pause. They're not related to the criminal case. They're civil juries. Civil rules. They can sit to the side for now. Okay, let's move on. Moving on to, got all of these. There's nothing in there apart from, and I really hope it rears its head with the one that I found around Pennsylvania. Don't know why my brain's just not processing that. So, District of Idaho, multi-state methamphetamine trafficker, Rito Salazar. Now, for those joined at the start of the live, does this name Salazar ring a bell? Has that even appeared? Yeah, okay, that's up. I'm going to open the document where there's the name Salazar. Again, I'm not saying that these people are related. The coincidence is a little bit weird, in my opinion. And what I'm looking at is I'm going back to the red flags of the start of December 2022 when it came to the DNA forensics and the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab Report 6176. We've got issues with the DNA on the K-bar sheet, and there's a Salazar who's kind of centered to that. And at the same time, July 9, 2025, there's a Salazar here. I'm not going to say that that's related, But the coincidence, the number of coincidences that come out in my crazy brain are just too many to count. So I'm so glad you're here. Yeah. Specialist prosecuted by the Special Assistant U.S. Attorney hired by Treasure Valley Partnership and State of Idaho to address gang crimes. Treasure Valley Partnership is comprised of a group of elected officials in southwest Idaho dedicated to regional coordination, cooperation, and collaboration. Now, here's where it went a bit weird for me again. Really freaking weird. Ready for this? I'm just going to, I want it to open in Safari for F's sake. Let's just copy that. Treasure Valley Partners. I hope I took a screenshot because if it doesn't do this time, I'm going to lose my mind. So this is meant to be the task force for this multi-state drug thing. And yes, my internet's slow. So while that loads up, haven't put it on stream, so that's fine. Good. I'll wait for that to load up and then server unexpectedly dropped the connection. That's because I put a full stop at the end. That's rubbish. Okay, I'm going to share that. So we've got this report, and you can see here on that report that domain name. Type it in and see if you get the same thing for yourself. For me, I get this. Now, is that not fucking weird? Tell me that's normal. That I type in around the drug task force and I end up on an online casino gaming site. Is it just because I'm in Australia? Because this came up when I had the VPN on to be in America. I don't understand. How does a drug task force domain end up being an online casino? Something's being hidden, in my opinion. I'm just, you see why. Tinfoil, full tinfoil. Okay, so we are. Thanks for sticking with me. This is wild. Okay, so I'm going back down from the coincidence of the name to somewhere in July 2025. And we've got the civil judgment fine to victims and the order of restitution. We've got order maintaining sealed status and unsealing redacting records. Order unsealing records. Second order seeking parties' position on unsealing stuff. That's a one about the church. There's a fraud one that we'll move on from. Then we have, where are we now? 15th of October. Operation Pacific Viper. Just switch back to this. There we go. Operation Pacific Viper. Coast Guard, US Coast Guard Pacific area, and this. The photos. Where's the photo that I saw? Look up Operation Pacific Viper for the haul that they pulled in. Bales upon bales upon bales of cocaine. There were submarines as well that were trafficking. So apart from the Trump's strike on cartel boats and all the controversy around that, they've been smuggling it via submarine as well. Anyway, Homeland Security, Operation Viper. Let's move on. That's just, it hurts my brain at this point. Then there was the, and so much stuff. There were a lot of yeah, you read that right. You do. Idaho News. Correct. Idaho News. Coroner's office cancelled in safe and sweet family-friendly Halloween party due to ongoing concerns regarding 20 rotting corpses that have been found. If you're anywhere near there, move house, sell your house, get out. That is wild. Former Pueblo County coroner Brian Cotter fell into hot water in August when 24 decomposing bodies discovered behind a hidden door in the mortuary. Now, I'm not saying this is related to Idaho 4, so I'm going to close it down. It's a whole other story around the coroner system in Idaho that has needed reform for most of forever and yet is still very much the Wild West. There are a lot of reports from ex coroners and a lot in early press articles I found that basically said if you wanted to get away with murder, Idaho would be the ideal place to do it. And that's a whole other story for another time. Let's stick on the Canyon County. It was the FBI, not ICE, that led the Southwest Idaho raid in Caldwell, and there's some correlation with other parallel investigations, including this Colorado court schedule, a Wilson and Idaho arrests for fentanyl, Stickergate getting back into the court 20th of November, and as we know, that's Gundy and friends with Doug Wilson's children. So we have church and state in court, November 2025. Okay. Then there's a Boise woman, 23rd of October, sentenced 10 years for brutal 2024 home invasion and stabbing incident, dressed all in black. That one, not that one. Supplements. Let's just have a look at the supplements that have current case. Okay, and then I found this. The Idaho Criminal Intelligence Center. Off the Idaho State Police site, there was a document, I think it was off there. A fusion liaison officer is an individual or non-commissioned employed within law enforcement, an emergency management agent, or persons who are tasked with key resource or critical infrastructure protection, who is responsible for reporting and disseminating suspicious activity to their local agency and to the Idaho Criminal Intelligence Center. And the applicants are required to maintain an agency recommendation to be a participant, sign roles and responsibilities contract, non-disclosure agreement for official use only, non-disclosure agreement for non-law enforcement FLOs. Law enforcement sensitive non-disclosure agreement is for law enforcement FLOs. So it can be non-law enforcement FLOs. FLO being fusion liaison officer, fusion multi activity. Idaho Criminal Intelligence Center in Meridian, Idaho. Nomination. Applicants merit. Nominee must provide information, personal information, education. Okay. Roles and responsibilities. Further training on the topics. Won't only represent their agency, but the program and Idaho Criminal Intelligence Center will also be required to sign non-disclosure and background checks. Okay, agency nomination, understand my recommendation, participate in the Idaho Criminal Intelligence Center's Fusion Liaison Officer Program, verification. So I feel, and this is just my opinion on this, because there's the whole graduate research assistantship, Washington State University, there's the program that he's applied for this. That role, that assistantship, was in terms of improving data quality for public safety between Pullman Police Department, Pasco Police Department, and Washington State University, amongst other agencies. Multi-agency. And I don't know about you, but if you look at the interview that Pullman Police Gary Jenkins, Pullman Police Chief Gary Jenkins, and we'll go through the Pullman Police stuff because Gary Jenkins says he's going to retire, multiple times. He finally retires early November, yeah, it was around June 2022. Gary Jenkins retires from Pullman Police. Around the same time, in fact, the same freaking month, both the three senior leaders of the Washington State University Police Department all resign amid an investigation regarding sexual assault by Officer Matt Kurt on university campus, allegedly. They all resign. They all quit the jobs so that there's no more investigation. Like, okay. Apparently, that's what you do. If you don't want to be investigated, you just resign. And then, like some people we know, you can just go and get a job at the next county in another police department. Anyway, the three of them resign, haven't seen their heads raise up yet. November 1, November 1st of November, 12 days before the homicides on King Road, Officer Matt Kurt resigns from Washington State University Police Department. November 1. There's then a search for an Elantra and a search through Koberger's apartment. Dawn Daniels is the one who gets a warrant for Koberger's apartment. Meanwhile, at Washington State University, Jenkins comes back out of retirement. He hasn't actually even left, and he finds himself the interim police chief for Washington State University Police Department, with the assistant police chief being Dawn Daniels. Interesting. Got something sticking out the back of my head. Okay. So then we have Dawn Daniels, who does Koberger's apartment search as the assistant police chief at Washington State University with Gary Jenkins. Gary Jenkins is the one who interviews Koberger for his graduate research assistantship in public safety in this partnership. I don't think that's any of that's real, in my opinion. Hypothetically, what if in that year from when Koberger leaves Pleasant Valley High School, 22nd of June 2021, he's off the radar for 12 months until he appears at Washington State University around June 2022. But as we've seen earlier in this live, May 2022 is when this multi-agency task force initiative started. And literally has only wrapped up, or hasn't wrapped up, but a key event happened this fucking week. Just 5 days ago, 6 days ago now, because it's rolled over to past midnight my time. 6 days ago, a senior DEA official, or the press release comes out about a senior DEA official who is the head of the financial operations for DEA, was, it's reported, was conspiring to support, I'm going to say this again, Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, cartel. One of the key cartels the DEA are trying to shut down was being supported by the DEA, a retired DEA, who, it makes me wonder about the parallel investigations and the secrecy in this case. How much of it is because they don't know who is the mole? Maybe. Maybe. I'm going to leave the live there tonight, I think. I think I'm going to leave it there because I've given a lot of information tonight, all allegedly, all for entertainment purposes only. Hooray! I'm going to put some videos together to try and tie my crazy brain, all these threads together in some sort of slower visual format, because we've kind of run through 60 billion different things tonight, but they all link. I think you'll find that there's a connection between all of them. And what I've done is I've looked outside of court documents, outside of just Moscow Police, Idaho State Police, Washington State Patrol, the usual gambit. Herwood appears in court. And I'm like, why? Why? And there's a reason. There's a clear reason. There is a reason, and there's some. I think I'll have to cover it in another one. I'll just say if I can find it. But in Pennsylvania, only recently, there was a document that talks about the court plea deal. Court plea deals in Pennsylvania and the need to seal whether or not the defendant who pleads guilty, like the basis of their plea, because it kind of is determining in sealed documents along with a guilty plea as to whether or not it's a genuine plea. Are they actually pleading guilty, or are they pleading, rather than the statements that Hitler was setting up of, did anyone coerce you? This is something for a private sealing, and what happens from there, no one knows. It won't even be, unless it's under a particular specific order in the case, for it to be shown to a specific party to the case, those documents will not be seen. I'll find it. I'll do a video on it. It will connect the dots. But Pennsylvania document in this case, I've got it somewhere. It's annoying because they've tried to bury us in documents. They have buried us in documents. So many freaking documents, and I know it's here. Between Oregon, Idaho, Washington, there's stuff happening in Canada. Look at the trafficking in Treasure Valley. I can't remember whether it was the second video I did regarding the super lab where they'd not. Okay, we'll get to China and the precursor imports, Canada, and the fentanyl trade is crazy stuff happening there. And the links with the import of fentanyl precursors from China by cartels, and how that links to the Aryan prison gang, and how that Aryan prison gang then links to Idaho 4. But I am falling off my chair trying to keep my thread of this together. There's stuff on crypto that we're going to go into. I'm going to finish with one last thing. Oh my God. Okay. Murder in Florida. MS-13 in, don't even know where. Pocatello man sentenced to federal prison for trafficking rugs, whatever. Let me just quickly look at that. May 8th, 2024. That's the Badgers Task Force federally funded high intensity drug trafficking area partnership with the DEA, state police, blah, 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 blah. Yes, I've seen the footage strung together in order, Jeff. And I'm less interested in the vehicle as opposed to 1119 King Road, Queen Road, whichever bloody road you want, the one that's directly ahead. The one that throughout the time period from 225 to 330, you see multiple light signals from windows, you see people moving in the house, you see two people exit the house and go around the back of the house, and we know that you can conceal the route down a path between there and 1122 should you want to. Not saying they did, just that could have. And I saw the sequence of vehicles, and including the ones that go, looks like someone calls an Uber, maybe. Lots of stuff going on. We'll get into that. I think we just posted the footage of that time period. I'm going to go through the others, but I think I've got plenty to go on. Jeff, quite happy if you want to send us a DM around some of the other stuff in the footage. If you've done anything to improve the audio quality or video quality, I started looking at the waveforms to improve the audio, and then I came across some other stuff that will be in next week's live because I am an absolute potato, but much love to all of you. I'll read that later, Jeff. Thanks. Thank you for being here, everybody. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. Ruby's not up to doing lives yet, but she will. Leave a comment if you think Ruby should join me on lives because she's she'll get there. And thank you again. See you next week, if not before. Bye.